They had already closed the casket. The marble hall of the private cemetery was filled with a silence so thick it pressed against the ears. Crystal chandeliers hung motionless above rows of dark suits and veiled dresses. Every person present had arrived in black cars with tinted windows, escorted by guards who watched the world as if it were an enemy. This was not just a funeral. It was a carefully staged farewell to one of the most powerful women on the planet. Evelyn Cross, billionaire, tech magnate, philanthropist, the woman whose name moved markets and governments alike. Official cause of death: sudden cardiac arrest at her private estate, late at night, alone. The media had called it tragic. Her competitors had called it inevitable. Her family had called it God's will. The coffin lay at the center of the room, polished obsidian wood, lined with white silk. On top rested a single silver rose, her signature symbol. The priest cleared his throat and began to speak about legacy, about the brevity of life, about how even giants must fall. No one noticed the man in the gray uniform at first. He stood near the back, beside the service door, holding a trash bin on wheels. His jacket smelled faintly of disinfectant and rain. His name badge read Daniel Morales, Sanitation Services. He wasn't supposed to be there during the ceremony, but the funeral director had waved him in earlier, annoyed and distracted. "Just be quick," she had said, "and don't make noise." Daniel had nodded. He always nodded. That's what invisible people do. But Daniel wasn't listening to the priest. His eyes were fixed on the coffin. His hands were shaking because he had seen that coffin before. Not today. Not yesterday, 3 nights ago. Back then, it wasn't surrounded by flowers or guards. It was in the underground loading bay of Cross Medical Research Center, wrapped in plastic, marked for disposal under a false manifest. And inside it, something had moved. The priest raised his hands. "We now commit her body to rest." Daniel took a step forward. "No," he whispered. No one heard him. He took another step, louder now. "No, wait." Several heads turned. A guard frowned. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. He hadn't planned this. He had promised himself he would stay quiet, go home, forget everything. But the image burned in his mind, pale fingers twitching, a soft gasp trapped under layers of plastic. "She's not dead," Daniel shouted. The words tore through the hall like glass shattering. Chaos erupted instantly. What did he say? "Get him out of here." Security. 2 guards rushed toward him. The priest froze mid-sentence. Evelyn Cross's sister, Margaret, stood abruptly, her face pale with fury. Daniel raised his hands. "I saw her," he said desperately. "She was breathing. She was alive." The guards grabbed his arms. "This is a funeral." Margaret snapped. "Remove this man." Daniel struggled. "You don't understand. 3 nights ago at the research center." Margaret's eyes flickered. Just for a second, Daniel saw it. Fear opened the coffin. He shouted, "If I'm wrong, arrest me, but if I'm right, enough." One guard growled, dragging him toward the door. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Wait." Everyone turned. The voice belonged to Dr. Alan Reeves, Evelyn Cross's personal physician, standing stiffly near the front. His face was drained of color. "What if?" Reeves said slowly. "We verify." Margaret spun toward him. "Are you insane?" Reeves swallowed, for the sake of certainty. The room buzzed with murmurs. The guards hesitated. Margaret looked around, realizing something dangerous: doubt. Even the smallest doubt could unravel everything. "Fine," she said sharply. "Open it, so everyone can see how absurd this is." The funeral director nodded nervously. 2 attendants stepped forward and lifted the lid. The coffin opened. At first, nothing seemed wrong. Evelyn Cross lay perfectly still, her face serene, makeup flawless. Then Daniel screamed. "Look at her chest." Silence fell. Slowly, unmistakably, the silk lining rose and fell. A gasp rippled through the hall. "She's breathing." Someone whispered. Margaret staggered back. "No, that's impossible." Evelyn's eyelids fluttered. Then her fingers curled. The hall exploded into screams. Doctors rushed forward. Guards shouted into radios. The priest crossed himself repeatedly. Daniel collapsed to his knees, sobbing with relief and terror. "She's alive," he whispered. "I told you." Evelyn Cross inhaled sharply, her body convulsing as air flooded lungs that hadn't been meant to breathe again. Her eyes opened, unfocused, confused. "Help me," she croaked. Within minutes, the funeral became an emergency evacuation. Sirens wailed as paramedics rushed her out, cameras flashing wildly outside the gates. The world would soon know that a billionaire had been buried alive. But that was only the beginning. At the hospital, while doctors stabilized her, investigators began asking questions. Why had a woman declared dead shown signs of life days later? Why had her body been transferred through a research facility before burial? Why had the death certificate been signed so quickly? And why was Margaret Cross refusing to answer any questions at all? Daniel sat alone in a small room, hands clasped, still wearing his gray uniform. A detective across from him leaned forward. "Tell me exactly what you saw," the detective said. Daniel took a deep breath. "I work night shifts," he began. "Garbage, medical waste. 3 nights ago, I was assigned to the research center, basement level. There was a container marked biological disposal, urgent." He paused. It wasn't supposed to be sealed yet. I heard a sound, like someone choking. The detective's pen stopped. "I opened it," Daniel continued. "Inside was a coffin, not fancy like this one, plastic-lined. I thought I was losing my mind." His voice shook. She moved. Her eyes were half open. She tried to speak, but there was a tube down her throat. "I ran for help, but when I came back, the container was gone, and the supervisor told me to forget it. Said I'd lose my job if I talked." The detective leaned back slowly. "What made you come today?" Daniel stared at the floor. "I saw the obituary, the picture. It was her. I couldn't let it happen." In another wing of the hospital, Evelyn Cross lay surrounded by machines. Her breathing was labored but steady. Her eyes were open now, sharp despite the exhaustion. Dr. Reeves stood beside her bed, trembling. "They tried to kill me," Evelyn whispered. Reeves flinched. "Who? My sister," Evelyn said. "And the board." She swallowed painfully. "I discovered something. The trials. The neural interface project. It wasn't about medicine. It was about control. Military contracts. Surveillance beyond imagination." Reeves looked around nervously. "You shouldn't speak. They poisoned me," Evelyn continued. "A compound that mimics death. Temporary shutdown. They plan to declare me dead, transfer me as biological material, and finish the job quietly." Her eyes burned with fury. "But they underestimated one thing." Reeves followed her gaze toward the window. "An honest man," Evelyn said softly. "News broke within hours. Billionaire declared dead, found alive at funeral. Markets crashed. Boards resigned. Margaret Cross was detained at a private airport, attempting to flee the country. The research center was raided. Secret documents leaked. Governments demanded answers." Daniel woke the next morning in a small hospital room, stunned to see a man in an expensive suit waiting for him. "You saved her life," the man said. "She wants to see you." Daniel protested, embarrassed, but later that day he stood beside Evelyn's bed. She looked different now, fragile, human. "You stopped my funeral," she said faintly. "Most people spent their lives attending mine." Daniel smiled nervously. "I just did what felt right." Evelyn reached for his hand. "I built empires," she said, "and nearly lost my life to them. You have nothing, and yet you risked everything." Tears filled Daniel's eyes. "I want you to work with me," Evelyn said, "not for money, for truth." Weeks later, Evelyn Cross appeared publicly for the first time since the funeral. Pale but alive, beside her stood Daniel, in a clean suit that still felt foreign on his shoulders. She told the world everything: the conspiracy, the attempted murder, the greed that nearly buried her alive. Margaret Cross was charged, so were several executives. Laws changed, companies fell, and somewhere deep inside a marble cemetery, an empty grave remained, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful force in the room is not wealth or influence or fear. It is the voice of a man everyone thought was invisible, standing up and saying, "She's not dead."